Before we begin, thank you very much to Sewer Samurai Sea Spray. That's a lot of S's. Thank you very much for the support. Thank you for your contribution. You're owed a review or video request, by the way, so make sure to go to my Patreon and send me that. Speaking of, guys, I don't know how. I don't know how this has happened, but there's like 200 people on my Patreon now. Thank you. Incredibly, thank you so much for that. And we're currently now over 800, which means on top of having to start Transformers Prime next month, we are going to be doing another series after that if we make it to July 1st and that number stays above 800. I decided it's going to be RID. It's going to be 2001 Robots in Disguise, because I don't want to go from one long series to another long series. Another we can knock out in a month, just so it's not so heavy to handle. So that's the plan right now. Thank you guys so much for the support. Like, I am like over the moon. Like, you guys have been incredible. Thank you so much. So let's continue doing this. So this is another Patreon requested video. Someone wanted me to do the Heralds of Unicron, and let me tell you, there's a lot to go through. There's a lot of them. I will admit, some of them come from some pretty deep fiction that really doesn't either is something that I'm not familiar with or has so little to go by. All I can really do is say, oh, hey, those are cool ideas for Minions. So you will forgive me if this is not the most detailed, but I'm trying to include a little bit of everything I have seen as far as what counts as a Minion or Herald of Unicron. There's a lot, because guess what? That's kind of his thing, is having his Heralds. So let's get started, because there's a lot to go through. We're going to start, of course, with the brand new cast that we just got in Rise of the Beasts, being Scourge, Battletrap, and Nightbird. I really do like this trio. I think they balance each other out pretty good in their personalities and combat styles. I like how they have unique abilities from each other. I like how distinct they are. I definitely could use more screen time, but I think all three of them have just enough presence for me to really feel like they are successful villains. So I think they're good. I think they are for big screen versions of Heralds of Unicron. Yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of being a threat to the Autobots and Maximals. Yeah, I may or may not have gotten Battletrap's toy very recently, because I liked how they he was handled in the movie so well. Not that he was handled great, could have used more screen time, but I like what they did with him. So there's that. We can, there's the prerequisite. We can talk about the G1 set, Galvatron, Scourge, and the Sweeps and Cyclonus. That's we pretty much know them, right? Former Decepticons, battle damaged and almost dead, reformatted by Unicron, served him for approximately 70 minutes. Let's say 60. But it's where it starts. It's the start of it, so we have to mention them. Of course, we have to mention them. Because they are the originals. They are always the most iconic. And Galvatron in a lot of fictions just ends up being a minion of Unicron, but they have the shortest tenure, and they definitely are not the most loyal. At least not Galvatron. Let's talk about ones that are loyal. We're going to start dancing around the fiction here. Let's talk about Blentrons. So this is Orpha. There's a few different ways of using that name, so I'm going with the official one. Latolata, which is not a Kamen Rider O's reference, and Drancron, the only one that's easy to pronounce. I love the idea of using the Fusors as Heralds of Unicron. The twisted forms and the chaotic nature of their overall designs makes so much sense to use as Heralds of Unicron. Especially especially the Torca mold, those huge curved horns. He looks like he should be Unicron's minion. I thought it was a great use. I thought it was an inspired use. So these actually served right beside Unicron, because in Beast Wars 2, Unicron, or Beast Wars Neo, actually. In Beast Wars Neo, actually, they're using the body of Beast Wars 2 Galvatron as a vessel for Unicron. So they are serving and battling directly beside Unicron in that series in the form that he's taken. Now, their loyalty is rewarded by Unicron absorbing all three of them in order to sustain himself after taking heavy damage. That's what loyalty gets you when you're one of Unicron's minions. There is some extended fiction that uses other Fusors as other Blentrons, but their fiction is extremely thin. It's Ask Vector Prime stuff, so it didn't really have anything to go off from there. But I still love the idea of like Fusors being used this way. Let's talk the Unicron Trilogy. So we have a few here. So for Armada, we have Thrust and Sideways, obviously. And technically Nemesis Prime, even though he's just kind of a puppet. But it's kind of where the Nemesis is a minion of Unicron starts. I like Thrust acting as a Decepticon until the last minute and then revealing, oh no, actually I'm Unicron. Sideways basically being an aspect of Unicron. That gets extended later on when we get into Cybertron. Sideways reappears, somehow tricks the Autobots again. I don't know how that happens, but it happened. We find out that Sideways, along with Soundwave and Laserbeak, are denizens of Planet X, and depending on which fiction you are watching, it's a little bit different. In the American version, Planet X gets into a conflict with Gigantian, and they unleash a weapon of so much power that it goes out of control and blows up the entire planet. Now, in the Galaxy Force version of it, Planet X is the remains of Unicron, and its denizens are the reanimated bodies of Transformers that have been absorbed by Unicron over the millennia. So it's a far creepier approach. And yeah, Planet X is still destroyed in direct conflict with Gigantian, or Gigalonia in Galaxy Force. But it does add a little bit of an extra wrinkle to it. I actually really do like the idea that like Unicron has his own population of Cybertronians because he is a planet, right? We like these guys. They had some actual character and personality in a series that was kind of devoid of that. And it's definitely one of the more unique takes on Soundwave. Also, just really cool designs in general, all around here. Honestly, yeah, that kind of goes for the Armada pair as well. Let's go to another facet of Armada, and this is the Dreamwave continuity. So we have to go two different directions with this. The start is the Worlds Collide event, where randomly a bunch of G1 Decepticons serving Unicron just fall into the story and take it over. It's kind of a directorial mandate because the big Unicron toy was on the way, so we have to interject Unicron, and why come up with new designs when we can borrow some famous Decepticons? It's a team consisting of Galvatron, Scourge, Bludgeon, Thunderwing, and Dirge. Yeah, so for some reason Dirge is in this group amongst all these other characters who are either known Unicron minions or former Decepticon leaders in G1. It's weird. It's a really weird choice. There's side fiction Ask Vector Prime to flesh it out, as there always is. Yeah, so these guys are not terribly difficult to handle, to be honest with you. Most of them are destroyed when Jetfire drops a bomb in their HQ and just wipes them out completely. And Galvatron is defeated by Megatron, with help from the Star Saber. It's important to note, Minicons were treated as individual characters, so the air defense Minicons coming to Megatron's aid was a moment of desperation choice, and it took another set of Minicons to free them after Galvatron was dispatched. So it's kind of like a greater good situation. But yeah, they didn't really, it was a four-parter. It's a four-parter, but they're pretty easily dispatched once you get over the shock of, oh my god, G1 villains. But that's not the end of Unicron in the Armada comics. While this is going on, he manages to abduct the 4 Armada Transmetal retools, and later on in the Energon comic, they are going to reappear as the 4 Horsemen of Unicron, which is okay. It's not enough that he literally is causing apocalypses just to feed himself. Now he has heralds as well. Now he has a 4 horseman set. They're entirely mind controlled, and they're very easily handling and wiping out Autobots throughout the series. It takes the invention of power linking to actually have enough power to fight back against them and drive them off. Had the Energon comic continued, they would have eventually been defeated once and for all by Omega Supreme. And considering it takes the Giant to come in and handle business, that'll tell you just how powerful these heralds tended to be. This was the nice stuff. We have to go into ugly places next. I apologize. We need to talk about KISS players, and probably the most unusual set of heralds there are. These are the Sparkbots. So these little ball transformers, pre-Bakugan, by the way, that were repainted for KISS players. The names of the Sparkbots: Angela, Stardust, and Zangetsu. No naming conventions whatsoever here. So the plot here is that they basically tricked the 3 main girls from KISS players into traveling through time and dimensions to different famous Transformers in order to absorb what they believe is a piece of the Allspark from them. It actually turns out to be Angelmoy's energy, which in Japanese fiction is often used as energy that is derived from Unicron and allows Unicron to take possession of those who are absorb too much of it. That's how Beast Wars Neo Unicron happens. Eventually, these 3 are found out. When they said they were with Primus, no, they're with Unicron. And eventually, they are defeated, they are contained, and guarded by Brave Maximus, which for 3 tiny little Sparkbots that are about the size of a human, that seems like a little bit overkill as far as a protector or guardian goes, right? I think it's a little much. But you know what? If they're that dangerous, they're that dangerous. Yeah, let an entire city watch over their jail cell. We have to hop into Universe now, and we're going to talk about Ramjet. I've never been big on Ramjet in general. His color scheme just seems way too nice and bright to be a Decepticon, but as a Herald of Unicron, it's kind of a twisted color scheme, so I kind of think it works in the most part there. So Ramjet is an incredibly powerful and psychotic minion of Unicron, and is capable of traveling different universes, as well as the chaotic space in between universes, which is where Ramjet gets trapped and tormented by a greater evil, even greater than Unicron, who takes great pleasure in killing and restoring Ramjet over and over and over and over again. And by the time he gets bored and spits Ramjet back out into the universe, poor guy is now completely out and insane. And now he is still immensely powerful, but he's spending most of his time just trying to hold himself together. Trying not to, because otherwise his entire form will just dissipate. So it's a really chaotic individual. It's a really chaotic take on a Unicron minion. Now, the universe fiction is also where we get the minions of Unicron, which is the actual faction name, Minions of Unicron, which starts with the ones we see from Universe, which is, Tankor, Obsidian, Reptilian, and Razorclaw. The repaint of Tigerhawk. It's a list of like 40 different Decepticons, Predacons, etc. that make up the minions of Unicron. I'm not going to go over the entire list here. Suffice to say, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. Let's dip into IDW Beast Wars, shall we? Now, in the books, in the main fiction of the comic books, pretty much every Beast Wars character is like like some twisted version, is like a servant of Liege Maximo. So this shouldn't surprise you that they have some other version of Unicron minions as well. In this case, they used a bunch of unused characters from the Japanese fiction. So you're looking at a few and one noted exception from American, Antagony, along with Hardhead, Thrustor, Maxby, and Hellscream. Here they are actually acting as minions of Shockeract, his heralds. And similarly, he's trying to absorb energy in order to, of course, power scheme. But they're tricking him into absorbing the Amalgoy's energy. I can never remember how to pronounce it, but same energy from the Japanese Beast Wars fiction. They're tricking him into absorbing that so he can be turned into a vessel for Unicron. The way this ended, can be a little bit triggering, so I'm not gonna talk about it here. Suffice to say, it didn't end well. It didn't end well for anyone involved here. We have to go to Marvel now, and the Marvel's got a few takes on theirs. So introducing 3 that really don't have toys of any kind. This is Hook, Line, and Sinker. And no, I'm not kidding. Those are the names they chose for Heralds of Unicron. Yeah, so these were just 3 low-life criminals, 3 that were reformatted by Unicron, and their first task is to find his true minion from another universe, which of course is Galvatron. It's where we get Galvatron 2 in the Marvel comic fiction, the silvery blue one. They don't last long. The minions themselves are eventually destroyed by that Galvatron, as well as an Emirate Zaron going nuts, if I recall correctly. Yeah, they're footnotes is what they are. I think it's interesting that someone actually found some weird comparisons between these 3 and the newest ones from Rise of the Beast, the Terracons, which I think is a little bit of conjecture, a little bit of convenience, but you know what? If you want to believe it, believe it. It's kind of a fun to think that they might actually be throwbacks. Let's see. We can talk about the Fallen too. So, in most fictions, the Fallen is one of the 13 original primes, formerly Megatronus, and sometimes he's out for himself, sometimes he has been corrupted by Unicron. It depends on the fiction. This one was definitely like a Unicron corruption, by the way. The Fallen was originally similar to Unicron, originally depicted as a multi-dimensional being. Every Fallen and Megatronus were the same. When Unicron's fiction ended and he stopped being a multi-universal creature, so did the Fallen. So all the Fallens are unique beings now. The Revenge of the Fallen is not this Fallen. Get it? So we take it on a Fallen-to-Fallen basis. Suffice to say, if they are not strictly corrupted by Unicron, they're working for Unicron, one way or generally. Someone else falls kind of in the same line is one of our newest ones, which is either Rodimus Unicronus or in the Machinima series Rodimus Kron. This incarnation is Hot Rod that has been corrupted by the Matrix of Chaos, which in the Machinima series is the final remnants of the original Unicron. Interesting that what is left of him would be his own version of the Matrix, but, that's how that goes. Yeah, he mostly just kind of exists as an excuse to paint Hot Rod black these days, I find. And it's either, in the black Hot Rods kind of fall in the same way as Optimus Primes and Nemesis Primes, where it is generally a corruption of Hot Rod, either through, like, the negative side of the Matrix or through his own doubts and insecurities. That kind of thing. So there's a few different ways that a Rodimus Unicronus is born, but for the most part, it pretty much is just, let's repaint Hot Rod black and have him possessed by a Unicron. Isn't that ironic? But still a relatively new concept, so we haven't seen this one too much. It's kind of similar to another concept, which is Grand Scourge. So once again, we have a corrupt Optimus Prime. This is Unicron's Matrix Hunter, another cross-dimensional being who is sought after Matrix across multiple universes. And he's basically just modeled after Grand Convoy, drones, and all. His stories mostly exist in pack-in comics, so his fiction is pretty thin. I'm not going to get into it in this one. Suffice to say, it's another Nemesis Prime and a long number of Nemesis Primes that are Unicron possessed. Like I said, there are two different types of Nemesis Primes. There is the kind that is the negative side of Optimus Prime, pushing forth and overtaking him, or directly possessed by Unicron, usually after some kind of failure that really sinks into Optimus, creates a vulnerability. However it is caused, it is always interesting to see Optimus Prime turned evil, and serving the Chaos Bringer is definitely an approach. They're usually silent. They're usually just dark, brooding, silent, and don't really feature much characterization to them. Suffice to say, it's Optimus, but evil. We have to go into BotCon for another one. This is from the 3H era, so way back in the day. Like, this is Windraiser. Yes, it's a Silverbolt repaint. Congratulations. So, this is a character that is a binary spark. Half of his spark is a young Predacon, and the other half is actually G1 Swoop. Weird, isn't it? It is a binary spark, and this is another character that was supposed to be a rival or a threat to Shockeract, but they were for a time possessed by Unicron, a corruption that did stick with them and caused him to be a herald for a while. Eventually, he does break free of that and essentially becomes a Silver Surfer type, traveling and trying to warn of Unicron's presence and stop him, before he can reach other worlds. So it's kind of like the more traditional sense of like a herald who is broken free. Again, it's 3H, so not a whole lot of fiction attached to Windraiser. A lot of that has to come from like the Beast Wars sourcebook comics, which frankly had to make up a lot to fill in gaps. There's a bunch of others. Like, we could continue into like some really random ones. The Power of the Prime little peel, like the peel cards for Kingdom. Like, all of those, some of those had some alternate versions. Dark Arachnia, Dinomus, that kind of thing. But then we're getting into just bit characters and really no one that has genuine fiction. They just have this weird, like, oh, by the way, Unicron took him over for a while. Nothing really more than that to say. And of course, there's other heralds out there, but I think, now reading 22 minutes on my timer, I think that's enough for today. That's just about every Unicron minion that was worth talking about. So, I hope you learned something. Unicron has a lot of employees, and very few of them actually have a long-term career in his employ. But you know what? He tries. So, thank you guys for watching. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. And I will see you next time.
We're gonna have to get your names for the books. You, Pale One.
William Current.
Roll me a deception check.
I thought their name was Pain.
Roll a disadvantage.
Okay.
That was like the opposite of the help action there. You, Goblin.
First name D's.
Watch your tongue.